Go
That's
ahead.
okay. And then somehow found my way to supply chain. I mean, it's two different worlds. Sometimes I wonder if it's easier to save a life or to work in supply chain. So here I am. If you don't know Froedtert Health, who are we? We're a health system in Eastern Wisconsin. We are growing rapidly. We are an academic medical center. We have 8 hospitals right now and over 50 clinics. We're a level 1 trauma center. We also have a large transplant program, large cancer center, and the list goes on. I wanted to take a minute to just kind of look at our values, because with value analysis, I think, and this is my belief, for any value analysis program to run smoothly and efficiently, they need to tie hand in hand with your system's missions, vision, and values. And here at Froedtert, especially in supply chain, we take our values very seriously, to the point where in larger meetings, we present our values, discuss them at the beginning of the meeting, and then proceed. So value analysis, as you can see here, ties to just about all of these. Valuing people, not just our patients, but our coworkers, our clinicians, our staff, our suppliers, working together as a team, collaborating together, acting now, figuring out problems, how to solve them, proactively looking forward into our future, owning it. If there's a problem, if there is something, we're facing, take accountability and move forward. Breakthrough. Value analysis. Everyone wants the new shiny objects. We want to be innovative. We want to be the first on the market to have something. And value analysis really ties that to the hospital, being able to get these products in our physician's hand in the most effective manner. And delivering excellence, delivering products that are best for our patients, the best outcomes, in the most fiscally responsible manner. So just kind of wanted to share that. Now, value analysis. Right now, there's no really gold standard. I know AVAP is working on a gold standard, but it's not something that textbooks are written about and you can just say, oh, here's what you do. So Froedtert Health has been through a couple different processes throughout the years. When I started here about 3 years ago, they had launched a new value analysis process, which we are using currently. So I kind of want to show you that structure and how we're revamping it. So our current structure is we have, at the top, we have our Executive Advisory Council. This is a multidisciplinary team that's system-wide, and it's really our governance over the value analysis process. This includes, you can see all the VPs, VP of Finance, HR, our service lines, supply chain, our CNO, physicians. Then we have our validation committees, the voting committees. These are our subject matter experts of these service lines who review and approve assessments. So when this process started, many of you probably know Ed Harden or knew Ed Harden. Him and one of our other staff members, Amanda Poles, went out and talked to the service lines, asked for physician leaders that would be part of this group and compile these groups. And then we have the advisory committees. These are infection prevention, biomed, pharmacy, finance, quality. These are ad hoc committees that we bring in to help out with assessments, review assessments, and add any expertise they can to the assessment. Now this next slide is a little busy and you can kind of see why we're restructuring. So right now, the committees are separated into 2 groups. We have the procedural group, which I oversee. And then we have the commodity groups, which my counterpart, Alyssa Strange, oversees. And as you can see, under each of these, there are so many groups. And in each group, there are probably, 3 to 8 quote unquote voting members that will review requests, all the data and evidence that are gathered, and vote on, whatever products are being requested. Now, if you look at the procedural area, and I'll focus on this one because this is the one I'm in charge of, you can see we have orthopedics, we have trauma, and podiatry. Well, those all kind of coexist together. We might have a product brought in under an orthopedic request, but the items used for trauma and podiatry. So we have a lot of overlapping requests or groups right now, so it gets confusing. And along with these requests, we just don't have the engagement. We don't have a regularly scheduled meetings with all these groups because it would be impossible with the number of these. So I'm just going to kind of move on here. So when I started here, I'm the only clinician in purchasing and contracting. And part of my role when I started was to really bridge the gap between our clinicians and supply chain. I mean, I'm sure there's many of you that can say, physicians and supply chain is like oil and water. They don't get along. So the first year I was here, I just went out, met physicians. We developed a bond because, we kind of came from the same world, and I kind of started to learn all their frustrations with our current process. The time it took for a request to go through our system was literally about 4 months to 9 months to get the product. When requests were submitted, if the request was over like $5,000, these groups had to vote on it. And whenever it was sent to vote, the voters wouldn't vote. So then it would get declined. And I'd hear, my product always gets declined. And I'd say, well, the voting members didn't vote. So then I'd resend it to vote. And it was a vicious cycle. And that's because we just didn't have the engagement. And we didn't have the bandwidth at the time to do a full standardization because each hospital wanted different things. Each physician wanted different things. So moving forward, I worked with our OR partners, our OR leadership, along with a few key physicians, some of our informatics team, and then our service line leaders to really look at our current issues and how we want to address them and build a new value analysis process. So here you can see our current issues. We had various processes. We have an online process, but it really limited collaboration. There was spots where physicians could enter comments and then someone else could discuss it. But I don't think no one used it. Let's be real. No one used it. Key information was missing. When we started this, our hope was to have physicians enter the product request. And I understand physicians don't have the time. So it fell on our coordinators. They didn't always know the why behind it, why they wanted this new shiny object. What did it do differently? What value did it bring? So we missed tons of information. There was never any, I shouldn't say ever, there was no evidence. It ended up being supply chain's tasked to bring in the evidence. So we realized that. So sitting down, we, as a steering committee, we decided that we wanted this new process to be clinically driven, multidisciplinary, a collaborative process. We wanted the physicians to be the decision makers for Froedtert Health. Historically, supply chain with big contracts, they'd look at the dollar sign and say, we're going to save the most money here. This is what we're signing up for. And that was the decision. We didn't really pull in our clinical staff. And if we did, it was, the chief of the department. Well, the dollar savings looked amazing. So we got the okay, but we didn't get down to everyone to get everyone's input and really see what was doable. Let's see. So we wanted this to be system-wide across all campuses. We wanted to focus on value. Value meaning value for the patients, for patient outcomes, clinical efficacy. We want to do all of this with being financially responsible. So, but really the value for Froedtert Health and the value for our patients. Then physician engagement, how do we do that? How do we get our physicians engaged? I've gone to so many seminars and all these physicians are engaged and I'm like, how do you guys do it? I don't know how you do it. And a lot of people have, organizations have gain share models, which, no, it's not good or bad, but, Froedtert Health isn't one that is doing gain share. So that was taken off the list. And how do we do this? So we had to come up with a strategy to get our physicians on board. So we worked with our executive leadership on coming up with a self-funding model. So each one of our groups, which I'll explain a little later, any savings opportunities, standardizations, any savings, we reinvest that money back into their group. Not the whole, we have a ratio, a 1-to-4 ratio on the savings that go back into their group. Our executive leadership helped come up with this proposal. They're on board with it. And what we did differently this time is we started here. We started with our executive leadership. We got their support. We drafted a policy procedure and we started with them. We got their support, we got their approval, and then we move forward. And I think that's what we were missing at the beginning, was having the top level support. So what did we do? We started a new governance structure, and our new VBCI, which is our value-based committee initiative committee, and our executive advisory council is our new oversight committee. They approve surgical service committee strategies, goals. They help eliminate barriers we may come up against, provide executive oversight. These are physician leadership, system and hospital administrators, and some supply chain leaders. Underneath this group is our accountable care teams. Now, if you can see in the bottom right, those are our proposed accountable care teams. We call them ACT groups. And you can see we went from like 20 groups down to these groups. So we launched our orthopedic and plastics group about 6 months ago. And I am tickled pink. We are doing absolutely amazing. So this is what the ACT structure looks like. We have committee co-chairs, which is a physician from each department. And then we have physicians from each one of our campuses, along with leadership, that all sit on this, this team that meets monthly to review requests, make decisions, and they talk about products. They have discussions. They challenge each other. And we decline products. We go back to vendors for further savings, because physicians will look at pricing and say, this is ridiculous. We're not doing this for that price. And they work with us. They collaborate with us to move forward. And it's honestly jaw-dropping at the success that we've seen with this group. And then, of course, you have the non-voting members that we bring in if needed. So this is what our structures will look like moving forward. And our process is a little different also. Prior, we had coordinators submitting the requests. Now we're actually having our vendors submit the requests. So they put in all the data, like catalog numbers and 510Ks, all that information. And then it goes to the physician. And the physician we're holding the physicians accountable. Why do you want this? What is it doing better than the product you currently have? How is it going to help our patients? And we're really stressing that. What is it going to do for our patients? How are we going to measure it? What evidence can you provide us that it's going to do X, Y, and Z? How are we going to follow up on this? And then obviously we assign a workflow, and it's brought up the next month for the committee. And in the committee meetings, they vote that day and they will have an answer that day. So if the request is complete, it could potentially be brought up next month. But the decision-making has been cut down, I mean, amazingly. And they're voted on real time by the members. So they have a decision. And then of course it goes through, you know, getting contracts and implementation and all of that. And then we are following up on all the requests on a retrospective analysis, depending on what the product is, to see if it's doing what it says it's doing. I know I'm taking up a lot of time. So
no, this is good. This is good.
Last, I just want to, I love this slide from AVAP, the value analysis maturity curve. So take a look at this and see where you're at and where you want to go.
And so you said you had just implemented one of those accountable care teams on the orthopedics. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so give us a timeline. When did that start roughly?
November-ish.
Okay.
And we're about to launch our general surgery.
Mm-hmm. And so, because it's gone so well. All right, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jessica, thank you for that. And now, Miss Angie, are you about ready?
I am.
And everybody, she pulls up her screen. Again, we need all your questions. You can feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll try to get to them as we can. But thank you so much. And then we'll get started here. Are you ready, Angie?
I am, if you can see my screen.
I can see it loud and clear on my end.
Awesome. Well, we'll start with, first of all, Jessica, my favorite comment you made was tickled pink. That was hands down one of my favorites. So I appreciate the little giggle that you gave me there. Pink is one of my favorite colors. So I just have to share that. Jessica's hard to follow, that's for sure. I think where I'll start after we talked previously, so everyone knows, but we didn't see each other's presentations, is we didn't like come together and say, hey, what are you putting on your presentation? Let's, work on this together. It was uniquely done, but there's a lot of similarities between the two of them, but there's definitely differences. And I think the big call out that I'll share to start us all out is every organization from a value analysis perspective, I think needs to find their own way of doing it. And every organization has to, like Jessica said, go around and ask questions, ask feedback, look to our industry standards, but then be willing and nimble and confident enough to go out there and do things maybe a little bit different. So as I start my presentation, you'll see we say the 5 rights of clinical supply integration. Yes, that is coined from the 5 rights of medication administration. So as we go through our presentation here with you guys, there'll be a little bit of similarities that we want to share with you all on that topic. So myself, I have been with the University of Kansas Health System for almost 10 years now. May will be 10 years. The majority of it has all been in supply chain, but I was heavily in distribution and logistics side. And then recently in early 2020, right when that pandemic hit, moved into the value analysis space. Jessica's clinical by background. I am not clinical by background, and I'll go into that a little bit more in detail because it's a difference between us and our roles, but both of those experiences, I think, play into how a value analysis program is established and built. So on the screen, you can see an image of our main campus. This is our Kansas City Metro campus. So right in the heart of the entire nation is where our main campus lies. And we're an academic medical center, but we do have locations out in Western Kansas as well. As Jessica said, we have cancer services. We have a multitude of clinics in the hundreds. We're a big, lofty organization, but at the heart of it all is the patients. And what do we need to do in this industry today, in this environment, especially to continue to be there to provide care for our patients? We have to be a little, creative, and we have to be able to sustain for our organization. And that's really where value analysis from a supply chain perspective can come into play to help take care of all of our patients. Our organization, as I continue in the slide deck, we care for patients within the Metro Kansas, around the region, the nation, even globally. So really our goal is to take care of as many patients as we can that need that support and need that care. Similar to Jessica, so once again, we did not come together and share our presentations. We are really big about our values as well. And the hope is that you'll see this embedded throughout the rest of the presentation as well. Compassion is a big one. We've mentioned the patients over and over again. I'm not clinical by background, but every single day working in the value analysis space, you have that connectivity to the patients, which is really tremendous for the person that can't do needles. So early on, I knew I wanted to do healthcare, but I was like, ooh, I kind of pass out when I go get my blood drawn. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this for a living, but I can help people get all of the products to draw the blood. So picked up on those connections for sure. So here is our vision and our mission, and then all those core values that we hold tight. Compassion is a big one. And then the evidence-based decision-making is huge. And from a supply chain perspective, a value analysis perspective, Jessica shared that too. That's what we strive on, is that evidence, both from the clinical side and the data, the financial and the operational components. So we'll go into a little bit about the people. Jessica took you all on her journey, kind of past and then present today. My journey is really going to start back in 2020 with you all, because this is when our program really turned a corner. And it's a huge thanks and gratitude to the folks that you see on this screen. Just like Jessica said, it starts at the top in implementing a program and having the organization and the culture align with the work of a value analysis team. So our organization, they got on board in late 2019 and then into 2020, right when the pandemic hit. Everyone was like, we really need to focus on clinical supply integration. That was our new take for our entire organization, is how do we get our clinicians involved in everything we do from a supply chain perspective? How do we get that buy-in? How do we ensure that they're at the table having conversations with us and being a part of those conversations on what products they're using, what contracts we're aligning with? Well, it all started with all of these wonderful people in our leadership team in order to start to funnel that down. So after our leadership team in about late 2019 said, we want to focus on this, we had to build the team. What isn't on the slide is back in 2019, our value analysis team was made up of 4 people. And that team did not only the value analysis work, they did strategic sourcing work, and they did our analytics work. You can see just from the screen in front of you, we've grown a little bit, which has been tremendous. And what I will say is it started with our leadership wanting the program, sharing the program, saying, here you go, here's a dream, go make it reality, make it happen. And then it was these people. So we got the structure in place where we would have more analysts from a value analysis perspective come on board, and they would have their own manager, and then they would have their own director as well. But the big piece that we needed to pull in to be a clinical supply integrated system was that we needed to incorporate utilization management, which I'll go a little bit more into down the road as well. And value analysis had been with our organization since I really started. It was small. However, we needed to be able to complete our entire value analysis program, which meant we needed to incorporate utilization management. So there's our structure. And once again, leadership team said, let's do it. Here's the dream, go make it a reality. And then we built the team, and the team ultimately is what has helped guide this cultural shift and help to support all of our end users to really make something so different than what it was. And culturally for our organization, it fits really well. And we'll go into that more in the presentation. A little bit more on the people. It takes a village. You probably heard that phrase before. What I will comment on is it takes a village of very devoted individuals. Jessica mentioned, is it harder to save a life or harder to do supply chain? you know what, in the past 2 years, that's a really tough one to answer, right? But in value analysis in particular, there's tough days and it's hard work, but by golly, it is some of the most rewarding work out there, I believe. Especially from the individual who doesn't like needles, who can't do the direct patient care. I enjoy thoroughly that I am able to work with a great group of individuals, both clinical and non-clinical, to provide that patient experience, positive patient experience, and contribute to their care. So compassion's on here. Ambition is huge. The team members that are in our value analysis team, or spoiler alert, our team name is Clinical Supply Optimization. They are ambitious, they are driven, and they are humble. And they work together to collaborate to do the best thing for that patient population or for that subspecialty of team members. They're also very diverse in their experience. One of the questions as we were building our program in 2020, we asked ourselves, well, you know, a lot of value analysis teams are made up of all RNs, or they have all clinicians, all business side. And we said, why don't we bring it all together? Why don't we have a triad of clinical, operational, and business-oriented experienced team members so that they can all leverage the knowledge from one another and they can all help support each other from their different past and their different experiences. And then lastly, and it may sound cliche, they have fun. They, by golly, they are just able to come together every day, work together with the clinicians, with each other, and they have a great time doing it. So clinical supply integration, here's our 5 rights. So as you can see, we are right product, right price, right time, right clinical team member, and right supplier. Those are our 5 rights for what has been deemed our clinical supply optimization team. So in 2020, when we knew we needed a utilization management team, we would no longer be able to call ourselves value analysis. So we said, well, we're a team that supports clinicians, we're clinical supply, and we want to optimize everything that we do. So we are clinical supply optimization. And there's the 5 things that really funnel up to make ourselves. And the first one is engage. Jessica mentioned that word as well. I think in 2020, I used the word engage in my conversation at least 20 to 30 times a day, because that was the word that came to support clinical supply integration within our health system. And then there's definitely the analytics involved, and there's the performance outcomes. And all in all, our mission for CSO then is we're utilizing evidence-based analytics to optimize clinical, operational, and economical stewardship. So when we look at every initiative, we look at not only the financial side, which historically has been what value analysis is used to doing, but we look at clinical, the operational, and the financial components involved. And I am watching the time, Hayes, so I may have to go a little bit quicker through this. So I apologize.
We're good. Keep on going.
Okay, so engage. Look, the slide says engagement, right? So we're all about engagement, and that's really where the structure comes into play. So we went further to say, okay, so how are we going to engage with all of these end users, all of these clinicians, right? And there's a committee structure involved. And some of the slides to follow will share with you how many committees we actually support. Our very first one at the top that you can see is all about physician and clinical end user engagement. So we, after discovery, actually didn't have enough committees, and we broke down into very granular subspecialty committees to support the needs of our clinicians. So these are committees that we actually run and facilitate, and there's also committees that we get an invitation to and come monthly or quarterly and speak to supply chain initiatives and needs as well. We then have our governance committee, which oversees everything. That's ultimately what our work funnels up to make sure that we have pipeline review, we're approving things appropriately, and we're meeting the need of that clinical supply integration that we've been chatting through. Our strategy committee was one of the new concepts that we actually implemented. Previous, we had about 10 committees to start, and then we had a governance structure. And we said, we kind of need something in the middle. And some people may go, gosh, you're adding layers to this. But for us, the key thing that our strategy committee is doing is helping to keep us all on the same page from a system level, to ensure that if we're going to change out a Foley catheter that's going to impact multiple departments across the entire system, we can funnel that knowledge and communication to one group, and we have point of contacts within each of those departments that can take that information and funnel it to the appropriate people, or bring feedback to us and say, this may not work, everybody, can we talk through this? And they also have approval rights for things within the organization as well. In addition, we had one more committee that we had to add, and it may be one of the most important to a certain degree, because communication, as Jessica shared, it is key to this whole piece. So after every single initiative gets complete, we have a clinical effectiveness committee, which meets ad hoc with our team, our supply chain team members that are impacted, whoever needs to place those orders, right? And then the clinicians that are involved, and we hand over our initiative to those teams so they know that a product is coming, or say a new contract has been loaded. And then our utilization management team is then responsible to do retrospective review on that product or that initiative going forward. So it's a physical handoff in a meeting with documentation that kind of keeps it all together with a nice pretty bow and passes it forward. We call these our straw men. So this is a process overview. You'll see in the middle is clinical supply integration. And at the very top in the blue is our committee meetings that we have. And then we have our value analysis team, and in the orange boxes are their main focus areas. So they have the end user engagement, they have implementation, which I will get to as well, and then the pipeline of all the initiatives as well. Utilization management then has about 5 key components or concepts that they own in their bucket. They manage our CPT programs, our reprocessing programs, our non-conforming program, which is anytime there's a bug in your pack, or a product doesn't work, or something doesn't plug in quite right. They also manage our recalls, and then they look at all the utilization processes and practices that involve product supplies across the system as well. On the right-hand side is our business sourcing strategies team. That is also within my pillar that I review, and that's the contracting piece. So Jessica has contracts too. Ours just live in a different pillar within our organization. And then in the box there are a few of the high level things that they oversee: our GPO management, how we go through our contract review process, green initiatives, innovation. So we partner with that group along the way of an initiative or contract review to ensure that all of everything is aligned and everything has I's dotted and T's crossed on that. Further, I told you in the beginning that our previous value analysis team, they did their analytics as well. We have our own supply chain analytics team that we could not do what we do without them. And they're on the left-hand side here on the screen, and they run all of our financial, they run our procedural analytics, they look at our utilization data. So they're there to help support our team and all of the initiatives that they have coming their way. Our process, and we use Gehrke for our system, so this is pulled from there, is the new product request workflow we also use for contracting as well. And there's an 8-step process. You can see it there in the gray. The main piece that I will also kind of tag along with Jessica is that we have our internal team members fill out product requests, or our team submits requests as well. So we'll kind of use it as a project management tracker. So if we're going to review a contract product spend category, we'll funnel that in there and have it work through the process as well, so we can capture everything within one system. So we flow through this process, and then the monitoring piece is really the key that we have changed a lot. That's where our utilization management team comes into play. So after an initiative has been handed off, like I talked about in our clinical effectiveness committees, our utilization management team has a set of criteria that they use to identify if they need to follow that initiative for 12 months. So if we have a product that says that it is going to reduce CODIs by X%, we are actually going to follow with those end users in that product for 12 months to monitor the outcomes of that product to see if the reduction actually occurred or not. And then we also do the same thing from following savings or expense as well from the financial perspective, and any operational criteria that we were supposed to follow throughout that initiative too. And then you can see some of the data points of the project that have come into the system since we onboarded it in January of 2021. Lots of projects, 487, and it's not all new products. Like I said, we try to use that system for one-stop shop. So everything for our CSO team is funneling into one location. We've approved some and we have denied some, which I will tell you, we were not that good about denying things, but our new process has allowed not CSO, but allowed our end users to say, gosh, maybe I don't need that, or maybe that's not the right thing for us to do right now. So that number has actually gone up, which one could say is exciting or not, but the process seems to be working because it's giving them the data that they need. Being mindful of time, I'll kind of zoom through some of these a little bit quicker. The other thing that our organization, especially in supply chain, is really, really keen on is people, processes, and systems. People are the biggest component of this, and then from my perspective at least. And then if you have the right people in the bus, all the processes and the systems and the strategy can come to be. So for you all, we started in 2020, and we kind of painted a picture of our people, and we did that by the team members, and then we did that by the committee numbers. And then we went into kind of how we prioritized our processes and our systems and what we needed to do there. And then a little bit of what our strategy work was that looking at what our strategy work needed to be for that year. So you can see from the people perspective, 2020, we started with about 15 committees, and going to 2021, we shot up to about 40. Back in my conversation I had spoken to, the feedback was we need to go more granular. We need to have more subspecialty committees. And by golly, I used the word engage a lot, and my team did. And we got a lot of engagement, and we had a lot of committees form because of the one-on-one conversations that we had. I think I calculated it. I think I had the same conversation and presentation 26 times in like 30 days with end users. And you just keep repeating it, and eventually it will stick. And I was told this comment by one of my leaders, which I love. When they start to say what you had shared, you know it's resonated. And you started to see and hear people say, oh yes, CSO, and oh no, you need to go through this process. And hey, tell me about that one more time. And they would start to say it. And that's when you know it's starting to solidify and sink in and become your foundation. So it was really nice to be able to hear that from our end users. 2021 was where we really started to outline our new process, which was looking at things from an operational, the financial, and the clinical perspective. So it took us some time to get our people in the right place and to get our committees formed. And then after we got the committees formed and got some feedback, we were able to start navigating through building out what that actual process really looked like. And then things on there like cross-functional alignment is huge. When I say clinical supply integration, it also means that we have to pull in some of our other departments across our system to help support the work that we do. Strategic partners, strategic analytic partners, looking at reimbursement. We have to start looking at it from a grander perspective. And that was what we started to incorporate into the questions we were asking in our workflows for new products, but also in general, to Jessica's point, why do you really need that? Tell me about it. Where's the evidence? We started asking those questions. And then we're in 2022. So we're still moving through a lot of this. We've kind of studied with committees a little bit, which is okay. We're still finding little niches and little requests here and there, and I've been either forming some more or we have been invited to join more. So we're always very excited about that. In addition, we added 2 new team members, which was huge. So one of the last gaps that we had to complete from 2019 during our discovery phase was the implementation of products. Take patient plastics. It touches everybody, right? Well, by golly, if you don't get every tiny thing set up the appropriate way within systems, communication, in your distribution center, the savings that you may get from onboarding that initiative may not get there if you don't have the product on the shelf because you haven't been able to order it appropriately. So we've established a team that will help support not only our supply chain teams, but our suppliers, all of our customers across the board with ensuring that initiatives get implemented appropriately. And they'll do lessons learned after each of those initiatives so we can consistently plan, do, check, act, and keep refining the process and improving upon it. I'm almost done. The data. So what have we done in 2 years, right? Here's the data. And for me, I'm just a very, very proud person of the team in the entire organization. So 8.1 million in savings since the inception, and that's about mid 2020. The non-conforming products, we've documented about 234 of those to date in that process. PSRTs are patient safety response teams, and essentially we would get calls when something was wrong in supply chain. They didn't have something, a product broke or something happened. We haven't had any of those for almost a year, which has been very exciting. There's details about the new products per quarter, the number of recalls that we review, new contracts that are shared. We had a 73.8% growth in our reprocessing program once we started to funnel that to our utilization management team and have them start to take ownership of that. You'll see the number of projects or contracts, 209, that have gone through the utilization management process and gone through that analysis retrospectively. And then we have 42 clinical committees. Told you lessons learned. We're big on that. 5 big things, and then I will definitely pause and hand it back to Hayes. Relationships are vital. Without them, we wouldn't have the team, and we wouldn't have had the team to make this program run like a well-oiled machine. And the clinicians and the customers are included in that. It's been astounding what they've been able to accomplish together. Partner with the end users, kind of a go figure, but definitely partner with them. Communication is key. You know, the whole tagline of, 7 times, 7 different ways. It's true. You may have to say it a few times in 7 different ways or more than that, and that's okay. Multidisciplinary expertise, that's involving not only our own CSO team or a value analysis team in general, but even just across the board of who you are working alongside. The clinicians are super, super valuable and have great information, but we have to partner with our suppliers and we have to partner with our finance teams in order for all of this to work. And then data. The biggest thing on the data is we are not here to say no. We are here to provide you all of the data for you to make the best decision for the organization and for the patient. So thank you. I am done talking now, Hayes, for at least a minute.
No, you did a great job. I would just say, and I think that was an important point. I think Jessica said the same thing. Really, these committees are not there to say no. They're there to get the very best products in at the right time, at the right place, all those good things. And so you're not there to say no. And that's one of the feedback I get frequently is from companies like, all I ever hear, is them saying no. So that's not necessarily the case. We're going to try to, if I'm trying to cough here, so just give me a second. We've got quite a few questions that came up here, and also keep on putting them in here, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. One, I'll throw this out to you, Jessica, first. I thought it was just a good question. It's something I hear frequently. If you're in a large health system, which like both of you are, do you have a process for handling standardization of devices? How do you handle if one campus feels differently than the other campus, in other words? So how would y'all handle that at Froedtert Health?
So actually, that's part of our initiative with creating these new groups. That's why we have physicians from each campus on these groups, and we are making them have the conversation together on the standardization, and they have to vote on the category together, and then whatever's voted on, that's what we're doing. But historically, all of our campuses didn't talk. Now they do, and they find it valuable.
Mm-hmm. And roughly, just how far are y'all apart? I just geographically, mile. I mean,
well, we just acquired Holy Family up in Manitowoc, so that one's further, 100 so miles away. But Menominee Falls and West Bend are closer. I don't know, 30, 40 miles.
Okay. Same thing with you, Angie. Y'all would try to create everything together, and I mean everybody would be on the same contract or whatever.
Yeah. But what's funny about that too, Hayes, is it's funny how many people can come together over supplies. So it's everyone uses supplies, right? It's our bread and butter, or clinicians have to use them. So we've even in some of our conversations, we do funnel and bring in end users from all of the campuses, all the locations, and they get to have their own dialogue, you know, and have conversation between this or that. But supply chain brings some of them together sometimes, which is, it's nice.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right. Given the sole sourcing led many health systems to scramble over the past 24 months, what are your thoughts on secondary vendor validation for key supplies? How are y'all handling that? And maybe even near sourcing some of those. Any questions? Who wants to jump on that first?
That gives heartburn, Hayes. So
Right.
what I would say is, unfortunately, some of our preferred suppliers haven't been able to meet the mark over the past couple of years. So we've had to go to a secondary, tertiary supplier in some instances. And this work actually in our team falls outside of our CSO program, our value analysis team. But one of the things that our business sourcing strategies team is working on is sub-repositories and actually truly aligning a secondary substitute for our primary product going forward, so that, you know, if something was to happen again, we have this knowledge and that it's been clinically vetted as well. And we do try to have secondary suppliers set up on contracts. And even more crucial, where our CSO team comes into play, is we've been trying to get those items to our end users to approve before we have to bring in that substitute. In utilization management, we have what's called formulary building, so kind of like a medication formulary. We're trying to actually set up formularies. We're in the infancy stages of that. We did one for PPE, and the team just finished one on ostomy supplies as well. So we're working towards some of those, trying to be a little bit more proactive with it.
I think for us, my counterpart, Alyssa, works very closely with our diversity program here at Froedtert. So for a lot of our commodity type items, we have a secondary diverse vendor that we use a smaller portion, maybe in everyday life, but they are a secondary source that we may lean back on at, you know, if we need them.
Makes sense. Absolutely. I'm just curious. I think it's
I like that, Jessica. I like that.
Well, here's one right here. Do you make a priority anything made in the USA, perhaps over for primary or secondary sources?
I mean, I think Alyssa's on here and she could probably pipe up. But diversity and inclusion is huge at Froedtert Health. So we try to bring in any and all diverse suppliers whenever we can. So yeah.
So
we equally have tried. We are trying not to accept the ones that we randomly get that someone made in their garage or something over the pandemic, right? That just came out of the woodworks. But we do ask that question. Unfortunately, even those suppliers are still strapped for some just even raw materials too. But that is a part of questions that we do ask.
Yeah, clearly that changed a lot in the last couple of years, those questions. And what I learned that I didn't really want aware of as relates to the supply chain is that many manufacturers might be 20 out there, but they're all maybe, you know, there are only 3 raw manufacturers of those goods that they're all getting it from. And so it creates a huge bottleneck there. Here's, I got one, this is when people entered their information. What types of data, aside from outcomes data, should a medical device manufacturer have at the ready for value analysis? And does patient-centered outcomes research impact value analysis decision-making process? Does that make sense to you guys? Y'all got a good answer to that.
I think so. I'll take a shot at it, Jessica, and then you can chime in. What I heard is the information really solely surrounding the clinical evidence. That in our organization, it is number one. We want to understand the clinical side. We want to see the evidence. Further to that, though, I would be ready to provide how you will be able to help us measure. That's one of the biggest challenges for us on some products, is you can say and claim, and the studies say this, right? But then for our organization, what can we get support from our suppliers on to help measure those true outcomes as well? What have you done in other organizations to say, yes, I actually, this product really did reduce happies or cotties or patient falls, whatever it may be. That would be probably what I would share. And then I'm never opposed to references as well from other locations that have utilized products as well. But the clinical piece is huge for us. It is definitely huge. And the operational piece, I would say too, if it would change anything process operationally for our nursing staff, for a technologist, for a physician, we want to know that as well. Because that can change the decision right there if operationally our organization doesn't need to change a process or would change a policy for nursing or something like that too.
Exactly. Jessica?
No, I agree. The clinical data is important, but we often reach out to references, and I will say include good references. We've had people include references that aren't good. So make sure you check on your references. Yeah, and then if there's a new process or if we have to have a program to implement this new technology, you know, what kind of, how can you help us with that program structure and a timeline and, you know, all that data that we need with that?
I mean, that would, the sales 101 is provide good recommendations or good referrals, correct? Unfortunately, that would be terrible. Guys, we've got about 2 minutes here. First of all, Jessica, Angie, you guys are awesome. Honestly, we could have made this, I think, in about a 2.5 hour presentation, but this has been super helpful. We're gonna try to hammer out a few more, but thank you so much. What we will do, guys who are on there, I've gotten quite a few direct messages. We will send this out as a, I'll send out the recording later on, probably Monday or Tuesday, along with their presentations. And so please give them a follow on LinkedIn as well. They are literally, I mean, they spent a ton of time putting all this together for us as you know, for the community, if you will. And I appreciate it both. And there's some backstories we won't get into, but literally there's a lot of going on out there. So on everybody's plate, but we appreciate both of you for doing this, and everybody on a Friday afternoon showing up and doing this. And I appreciate it. If you would give them a little hand, saying, there's a lot of good quotes coming in here. So give them a hand here. Thank you very much. I see you, Alex, up there. Speaking of a nearshore guy right there, but thank you.
Can I just say something?
Of course.
You know, I have learned a lot just doing this, especially from Angie. Get out there and network. And I know people are hiding in here. I know Dee Donatelli's in here and Barb. There are some amazing contacts out there. And, you know, Angie was a hidden gem I never knew about. So, you know, just use one another. And I know I've taken a lot away from this, but I think value analysis as a whole, we can all learn from each other and make all of our systems better.
Ditto. She could not have said it better, but I do appreciate Jessica. I've already called her for ideas and I will continue to do this. So, Hayes, thank you. And thank you, Jessica. And thank you to everyone. Yes, please share your thoughts, your feedback. We want to learn from you, just like Jessica said. So we really appreciate it.
You know, it's been a blast. And again, I knew I put these two together, Jessica and Angie, after I met them separately. And I was like, okay, this is going to work. And so we got a pair of winners right here, and we'll probably create something else here in the near future. I've got another group of kind of presentations that I'm working on. They're not necessarily around value analysis right now. We've got some on sales development for healthcare suppliers, sales development, and also probably something on the patient at home experience. That's another big issue that if you're a supplier out there, if you hadn't figured out maybe how to get your product literally to the doorstep, it's different. Things are changing. And so that's something else that we're working on putting on together. But on this Friday afternoon, Angie, Jessica, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. Everybody, we had, I think, about 174 people at one point, which is a great number. And probably over 500 will actually be getting all the information afterwards. So thank you both. We appreciate it. If I can help any of you, please let me know. Reach out to me, reach out to Jessica and Angie, maybe probably through LinkedIn, probably be the easiest way to do that. And I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful weekend, and thank y'all both for all your help.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.